Hi, everyone. Welcome to the show. I'm Dr. Nicole, and today we're talking all about how to create more space in your life to help you be more regulated so you can support your kids in being better regulated. And I don't just mean physical space in your life, although that can certainly be part of it. We're talking about the space we need in our minds, in our thoughts, in our feelings, in our bodies, in the environment around us, that allows us to be more reflective and responsive to the things that happen to us, as opposed to being reactive. We're also going to explore some practical ways we can avoid the buildup of toxic stress, emotions, and experiences over time, especially when we're navigating particularly tough seasons with our kids. To help us with all of this, I've invited my good friend Jason Campbell back to the show. The episode that Jason and I did together a year ago is the most downloaded and shared episode of the show to date. So, of course, I had to have him back for another conversation today. For those of you who didn't catch the previous episode, let me tell you a bit about Jason. His journey into meditation, music, and wellness began 44 years ago at the age of 8 when his teacher told him to never listen to notes, but instead to listen to the space in between the notes. He's been creating music ever since and has released over 100 albums and has been #1 on multiple Billboard and Amazon charts. Jason is also a 7th degree black belt and co-founder of Zen Wellness. His unique perspective on health, wellness, and spiritual growth comes from his lifelong study of both music and the ancient arts of Eastern health, medicine, meditation, and enlightenment. His music and teachings have opened meditation to thousands of people who have never meditated before or who have tried meditation and failed in their effort to simply sit still and clear the mind. Jason often says, be still for one song, 5 minutes per day, close your eyes and breathe with the bell. It can change your life. On a personal note, Jason is the father of 2 young adult children and understands what it means to navigate the many challenges that come along with having kids and the extra needs they bring. Jason, welcome back to the show. It's so great to have you with us again.
Well, thank you for having me back. I can't believe it's been a year.
I know, time flies. And for those of you who didn't catch this episode a year ago, we actually re-aired it a couple of weeks ago in preparation for this sort of continuation episode. So you don't have to go back too many episodes to find that. It might give you some helpful context. But Jason, for people who maybe have not encountered you before, I'd love for you to just briefly share a little bit of your story about how you came to be doing the work that you're doing today.
You said some of it in the intro, and my introduction into meditation started at age 8, but we didn't call it meditation. We just called it deep listening. And more specifically, I had an amazing piano teacher, and she said to me, never listen to the notes because idiots listen to notes. Masters listen to the space in between the notes. When you focus on a note, your mind gets cluttered and you hear nothing. When you focus on space or silence or the gap, then your mind becomes clear and you hear everything. So my entry point was just playing one note, gong, and we'd listen to that note dissolve into nothingness and continue to listen. Gong, and then we'd play another note. And it wasn't until, just under a decade or so later when I was formally trained in meditation in an ashram, and we used to sit for 4 hours back then. This was the 80s, different time period. And then I realized, well, wait a minute, I've been doing this the entire time. We didn't use the word meditation. We used the word deep listening, but who cares what word you use? Because all you're doing is going to the place where you are turning your incessant stream of thinking off. And there are many ways to do that. And we have so many people that come in our programs. Oh, I've never meditated before and I've failed to meditate. A lot of people feel like they fail to meditate, which is a strange concept. I would have one teacher would say, no, there's no such thing as good or bad Zen. There's only Zen. Mm-hmm. But really, just not understanding the essence of what we're doing. Because, okay, well, have you ever had your mind turn off and your thoughts turn off? Oh, well, I get that sometimes when I go on walks, or I get that when I give my dog belly rubs, or I get that when I do these different things. Well, then you're doing a form of meditation to stop the incessant stream of thinking, or at least just have a little gap in the incessant stream of thinking. And then when they come into our training programs, we just build that muscle so that you can do it at will. But most likely you've already had that experience.
Mm-hmm. It's so true. I think this idea of failing at meditation comes from a preconceived idea a lot of people have about what meditation is supposed to be. Set up my area, I sit, I'm supposed to, turn my thoughts off or be focused on the moment. And the minute their brain, goes to something, it's like, oh, I failed at this. Well, we all fail at doing that. That's part of being human. The practice is bringing ourselves back to the present moment, right? And we do that all the time without realizing that that's what we're doing, and certainly without calling it meditation.
There's an old saying that says, chain the monkey to the tree. And the monkey is the monkey mind. And the monkey mind is the blah, 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 blah that goes on. But you're not your thoughts, and you are not your monkey mind. What you are is that which observes the thoughts. So there's the stream of thinking, and part of a muscle, and we're going to tie this into parenting here in a moment. We'll see the tie-in. Is being able to watch your thoughts, almost like watching clouds or watching a stream flow without falling into them. And so when we say chain the monkey to the tree, it just means the monkey mind, chain it to the tree. But we have to know that the monkey is a master locksmith. And no matter what you do, that monkey is going to escape. And it's either going to be 1 second, 5 seconds, 1 hour, whatever the time is. It's going to come out, and that's okay. And so you come out, you come into your thoughts, you lose yourself, blah, 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 and then you just come right back. And then maybe it's 1 second later, blah, 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 and then you come back. And that muscle, that's I call it a mastery muscle that you start to build, because you say, hey, I'm going to pursue mastery of my own mind and mastery of my own thoughts. And it's actually easier than you think. See, there's this really strange thing in the wellness world, and it's the word called mindfulness. Now, before I researched it, I used to think that the mindfulness word was done by like an evil Taoist master who wanted to confuse everybody and bring everyone farther away from the truth. Because let's think about that for a moment. Who needs more stuff in your mind? Mind full. No, it's the opposite. It's mind empty. And then it gets even worse when you say, work on mindfulness. Mindfulness is something I need to work on. Well, that's going to bring you farther away from what you're looking for than anything else, because presence is not something that can be worked on, because when you think work on, that puts present into the future. That's the monkey mind tricking you. You can only be present now. And so the only thing you can do is remember. So it's not about working on it, because you already know it. And a little history on the word mindfulness. I think it was 1910 or so, a Buddhist scholar, T.W. Davis, translated the word sati into the word mindfulness. Now, this was over 100 years ago, so I don't think he meant anything wrong by it, but really a better word or a better translation would be awareness. Mm-hmm. So I think it was an honest mistake, and then it kind of caught on maybe in the 70s or so, in the 80s, and now people say, oh, I'm practicing mindfulness. So I'm really working on my mindfulness. It's like, oh no, you've been tricked. Mm-hmm. It's actually the opposite. It's be present now. That's it. And it's much simpler. That's the good news. Working on mindfulness is difficult because you'll never find it. It's like a fish looking for water. You'll never find it if you look for it.
Yeah. And I think this idea of being able to be in the present moment, and this having the space in our mind to be in the present moment, we don't often think about how valuable and important that is, and actually what a problem it can be for us when we're not doing that. I'm thinking about situations that people encounter, just day-to-day stuff with parenting or living our lives at work, with our partners, whatever it might be. We don't realize how often we are actually caught up in the what's coming next or what is in the future when we're going through those things. There's no space even most of the time for us mentally to be present in the moment. We're already running all the plays for, what's going to happen next and what's going to happen, what am I going to do about this? And what if my kid says this? And what if this happens? And sometimes it's even like the play by play of what's going to happen 5 minutes from now. But sometimes, especially with our kids, we go way into the future. And instead of being able to really be in the moment for what it is and thinking about and handling what's happening, we're already playing out a scenario of them being 25 or, 50 years old. And we don't realize that our mind is so far into the future that we're reacting to what's happening with our 2-year-old or our 13-year-old or our 20-year-old now, not based on what's actually happening right now in front of us, but based on all of this sort of monkey mind future storytelling. I don't think we realize we're doing that. And I think that becomes really problematic.
Boy, there's a lot there. So it's estimated we have, and this is an old estimate, 50,000 to 80,000 thoughts a day. I wonder if that's more with media and phones and all the turbidity that social media creates.
Yeah.
But 99% are the same thoughts we had yesterday. So there's a lot of skipped record action. Some of your listeners might have to Google what a skipped record is, where you just repeat and it repeats. And that becomes no longer helpful. It's the opposite, because it clouds you and it clouds your thinking, and it doesn't create space. Especially if you're in a situation with a challenging kid, well, it's going to feel like you don't have any space. And it's just completely filled up all day. And so the most important thing, I know it's a cliche, this analogy, but it's such a good analogy on an airplane when you have to put the mask on yourself before you put the mask on your kid. Because if you are a turbid mess in between your ears, your ability to help your child becomes very limited. So the first thing is take care of your own internal business and create some space in your thoughts, and just even some space in your body. That's maybe another conversation as well. And then you can find yourself responding more than reacting to whatever is going on. And because react, it's very hard to be on defense, like on your heels with a difficult child. You got to get on the balls of your feet. And so you're not just responding, and that just comes from space. Or excuse me, you're not reacting. Right. And that comes from space.
In our last conversation, we talked a lot about this idea of we need to keep ourselves regulated. That becomes our primary focus, which is counterintuitive, right? We think we need to do something to our kids or for our kids, but we need to focus on ourselves. I like what you just said, like mind our own internal business. Like we need to keep ourselves regulated in order to help them be regulated. And we briefly touched on this idea of creating more space, and this can go a lot of different directions. Like you just talked about, even space in your body, certainly space in your thoughts. I think in a lot of ways, modern life, the way that we're currently living, is so counterproductive in terms of how we create more space for ourselves. I've watched, even in the last 25 years of doing work with kids, with adults, with families, in just living life and having my own kids, I think we're a lot more space deprived now in today's current culture. You mentioned social media and all of that. I mean, this sort of 24/7 connected, fast-paced, more and more input coming in, more and more stuff that we're sort of expecting ourselves to do. And I think for all of us, kids and adults, we've created this chronic, severe lack of space all the way around in our lives. I'm curious what you think about that.
Well, I think it's very true. I read, I don't remember who said this, but that Twitter makes you angry, Instagram makes you depressed.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. I thought there was some wisdom in that saying there. Yep. There's an old saying, comparison is the thief of joy. We're not meant to sit and scroll and get these images and these crazy images. It scrambles your brain. Personally, I'm not on social media because I can't do the same level of deep work that it requires while sitting and scrolling. I mean, if you need to be on it, great. And there's a really good chance you're listening to this on some type of social media or some type of platform. I learn things on it if I go to YouTube or something to look something up, of course. But really avoid the scroll because you don't need it. And even when you go for a walk, okay, here's a little challenge. And this used to be normal. Go for a walk without media. Not even headphones, just go for a walk. And if you can go in the woods or somewhere in nature, great. If you can't, great. But let's see what happens when you have your own thoughts and not someone else's thoughts. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of the media and staying plugged in, it's other people's thoughts. And a lot of times they're not there for your benefit. So see what happens and even see if you have a moment of no thought and not thinking. There's a little technique you can do. And boy, I've been teaching this for a quarter of a century, and it's a meditation technique. And I'll say nowadays, 20 years ago, when we would teach meditation, I'd say, okay, meditate 40 minutes in the morning and 40 minutes at night. And everyone would say, okay. And they'd actually do it. Well, yeah, I'm going to tell you that now. You're just going to nod your head. Sure, I'll get right on that. Because media has sucked up the space and has sucked up the time. In some cases, it's sucked up the soul. Mm-hmm. And so here's a little technique right now. Try it. We'll do it like 5 seconds. Ask yourself, I wonder what my next thought will be. Mm-hmm. And just wait a moment. And the analogy I like to make is the cat staring at the mouse hole. Just wait. At some point, a mouse or a thought is going to come running out. And when that does, don't chase it. No. Just come right back to the mouse hole and say, I wonder what my next thought will be. And you can do that for 20 seconds. You can do that when you're in the middle of something. And maybe if you're in an intense conversation or in some intense thing with your kid and you just need a little bit of space, just wait. And see if that drops the incessant stream of thinking or the reactiveness that happens, because you don't wake up in the morning and say, you know what, today I'm going to be turbid. I'm going to have too many thoughts. I'm going to lose my cool, 4 times. I'm going to scream at my kid. I'm going to be really, really reactive, and I'm going to go to bed angry, like with a little checklist, like my goal sheet. That's usually not the plan. However, sometimes that does happen, and it's a slippery slope. You can have the best intentions, everything. It's hard. Sometimes it's almost like an impossibility. It's like trying to win a rigged carnival game. Like sometimes dealing with a kid or getting a difficult kid to comply, it doesn't matter. It's like you're not going to win that. And there's an old saying, don't play a game that you don't want to win. Or there's so many variations on that. When you play stupid games, your reward is stupid prizes. Mm-hmm. Yep. So you can change the game. Now that can mean so many different things depending on your individual situation, but it starts in between your ears. And it starts, can you have just a dollop of space? There's a Japanese word called satori, S-A-T-O-R-I, and that roughly translates to mean a glimpse of enlightenment. What is a glimpse of enlightenment? Well, we can maybe have maybe next year we do another podcast on that. We'll just turn this into an annual event.
That's right.
But a oversimplification way of looking at it is stop thinking. Mm-hmm. Just stop. For how long? Does that matter? By asking the question you're thinking. Mm-hmm. So just stop thinking. A split second or a day, what's the difference? Mm-hmm. And the word satori is that glimpse, because a glimpse of enlightenment is forever enlightened. Mm-hmm. It's like you can't unring that bell once that happens. And then we can say, because I've had wellness centers, I've had martial arts centers for decades. And hey, we're in a different time period. The kids are different now than they used to be. Way, way different. Ooh, the parents are different. Everything is completely different. And it all starts with you. It all starts in between your ears. And that's the most important thing. It's even that vibrational frequency that you bring to the situation is very important.
And I think this is so counterintuitive to people because, at least in our culture, there's this sort of inherent messaging around you think your way out of things. You think your way through things. You always have to be thinking one step ahead. It's like this, we're just trained to use our thoughts, our problem solving to constantly try to get through things. And so the idea that the way you might handle challenges with your kids or in whatever area of your life is to actually slow down and pause and create this space, I think is really counterintuitive because people think, no, I need to be doing something. If my child is throwing a temper tantrum, I need to do something about that. Or if X, Y, or Z situation's happening, I need to, figure out right away as quickly as possible what to do about it. And what we're suggesting and what you're talking about is, no, first we need to slow down and pause and take in and actually be present with what's happening. And then out of that, we can evolve and figure out the what to do. But this sort of racing to the doing before we've paused to actually take in what's happening can get us into a lot of trouble.
There's a saying called the fog of war. And you can think of it as you're in a snowstorm, you're in a blizzard, you can't see 3 feet in front of you. So then the question is, what do you do? You don't know is what's in front of you. Maybe you're at the edge of a cliff. You don't, or maybe the answer is 3 feet in front of you, but you don't know. And so I like to say, when there's doubt, there is no doubt. So sometimes if you're in a thing and there's a temper tantrum going on and things are flying and screaming, well, just scream louder, right? Scream your way out of it. There's a good plan. And sometimes there's no thinking to be done in that situation. Sometimes doing nothing and just waiting and let it pass. Okay. For example, like out here, we get monsoons or we get these flash floods. Okay. So what do? Well, usually you just do nothing. Unless you're in the way. I've been out of a flash flood before,
Right.
like having to Indiana Jones my way out of it. But aside from that, okay, when you have a storm, and a big winter storm, okay, what do? Scream at the storm, get out and keep shoveling as the snow is coming down? No, sometimes you do nothing and you wait. And especially if you like the energy of a panic, oh my God, it's snowing, and you go out there and you panic and you're trying to shovel and shoveling all away and you're not doing, well, no, don't do that. And it's not helpful, but here's the other thing. It's actually harmful, because who does it harm? You. Because now you're wasting energy. Here's something I teach in the my breathing classes is, think of your energy. Energy in your body is currency. And one of the things we do with breath work is we build up your bank account. We build up your energetic bank account. So if I say, hey, don't go waste your money, well, that's easy to understand. Everyone knows what that means. But it's the same thing with energy, because look, we all have a finite amount of energy for the day. And how are you going to focus it, and how are you going to spend it? And sometimes you have to go the opposite. You just go inward and you wait. And maybe your kid's throwing a tantrum. Maybe it's an intense situation. But okay, if you've already had the experience and you're trying to get in there and yell and scream and stop and think your way through it, okay, maybe it worked out for you, maybe it didn't. So, and if it didn't work out, well, try it. Try a little bit of space and let's see what happens, and see how you feel. And also see how they react. And now I wish there was a magic pill, potion, or lotion, or a silver bullet, or a one thing fits all. Boy, I would sell that immediately if that actually existed, but there's not. It's complicated. It's multi-dimensional. Something works once, and then later on, it works, and it's like medication. How long does it work? Well, until it doesn't.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, but that's something. But if you even just go into the situation with a clear head, the situation will be better, whatever better means.
And I think the energy around it is better, not only for us, it gets us out of that franticness of, I need to immediately do something about this, but it's also better for our kids. When we come into it, that energy of my goal right now, the thing I'm focused on is just creating space in this moment for myself, for my child, that actually takes the pressure off of them and creates space for them as well, which is, beneficial in so many ways. And this idea of this, budget of energy, this amount of energy, it's interesting. Many of you listening probably caught one or both of the episodes I did with Dr. Mona Delahook, who writes and talks a lot about the neuroscience of behavior and parenting. And she talks about the research that's been done on this concept of the body budget, which is what you're talking about. And some of you have heard those episodes. This may be, reminding you of that we do have a finite amount of energy. We have to be aware of how much energy is going out, how we're expending that energy, how we're creating energy for ourselves and for our kids too. That idea of body budget, I think, is really, really helpful. I want to think about this idea of chronic stress, challenge, difficulties building up over time, because I think for a lot of parents who are listening and possibly, even the professionals listening who have been doing, work with kids with challenges for a long time, inherently there are going to be more difficult times or seasons. And it can be really difficult during challenging times or stretches of time to know how to protect our energy levels, how to, maybe we're trying to do things in the moment to create space, but in the big picture, stuff can build up and we can really develop like toxic burden of stress, of difficult, uncomfortable feelings, even in our body, like build up toxic levels of neurochemicals, of hormones, of stress chemicals. And I think that's one of the things that I see in working with families. Parents need tools for learning how to discharge this energy, because I will sometimes, the most extreme examples that come to mind are parents who come to me now with young adult kids where they've been dealing with, 2 decades of really intense stuff. And it has built up and built up and built up, and you can just see it in their bodies. You can hear it in their voices. There has been no outlet. They've had no tools for releasing any of this along the way. And that has significant mental and physical health consequences for the parents as well as the kids. And I think you have some really nice ways of thinking about how to do what you call purging of this stuff over time. And so I'd love for you to talk a bit about that. What does it mean? What do you mean by purging? What is that? How is that helpful?
The circumstance you talk about also accelerates the aging process.
For sure.
That's what it does. So think of it this way. Think of just never cleaning your kitchen. Go 5 years without cleaning your kitchen. See what your kitchen looks like. Well, or however much time, and your inner world does need to be cleaned. And exercise and walking and movement is a great way of cleaning it. Now, that's the very basic way. I like to. We certainly don't stop there, and I think there's a bunch of ways, and probably the lowest hanging fruit. So the way that you can get the most benefit in the shortest amount of time. So here's the drum roll. It's actually not meditation. 25 years ago, I used to start by teaching meditation. Now everyone's too stressed. They can't handle it. If you're not used to it and I say, hey, sit and be still for 5 minutes, well, if you're in a difficult situation, I work with a lot of entrepreneurs also, parents and entrepreneurs, a lot of them have the same type of churn, is that you start getting stressed. Oh, I could be doing something. What am I doing sitting here? How come I'm meditating? And actually the mind starts churning more. So we build into that. And where we start with is the breathing, and we start with the breath work, and the breath work helps clean the kitchen out. And once you get a clean kitchen, it's much easier to maintain a clean kitchen by doing a little bit each day. And so I like to say, let's pretend for a moment you said, okay, I only have 30 minutes a week for wellness. Well, I'm going to question you in a few other things. I'm going to say, put down the social media is one thing I'm going to say, but let's just go with this for the analogy. You only have 30 minutes. Okay, fine. Well, are you better off doing 30 minutes on Sunday or 5 minutes a day for 6 of the 7 days? Well, you're actually better with the 5 minutes a day. Why? Well, okay, let's wait till Sunday and take 7 showers. You're better off with a shower a day. And if you skip Sunday for a shower, fine. If you're new to showers, I'll work with you on that. So you're better off with just 5 minutes. And there's an old saying in meditation, the teacher says to the student, okay, you need to, meditate 20 minutes a day. I don't have 20 minutes. Okay, do 10 minutes. Oh, I don't have 10 minutes. Do 5 minutes. Oh, I don't have 5 minutes. Well, do 2 minutes. Oh, I don't have 2 minutes. Okay, you need 2 hours then.
Right. That's right.
If you don't have 2 minutes to meditate, you need 2 hours to meditate because you are a turbid shit show in between your ears.
That's right. And it's this idea of more consistently needing to purge or release from this, right? Because the longer we let it build up and then we say, oh, now I'm like at a boiling point. Now I'm going to do something about it. It's actually more effective to release this pent up stress, energy, and emotion along the way. And so I like it. You introduced me to this idea of, using the word purge in relation to this. And it makes good sense because it's a very visceral word, right? And it's this idea of like actually getting that out of us. And I think that a lot of people go their whole lives without realizing that you can do that. Maybe they think, energy, like, maybe they have an experience of like during a really intense period, like running it off or, boxing or something like that to get rid of it. But we need some practical things that we can do on a very regular basis in our life to give us this release. And you have a specific type of breathing that you do around this, right?
Can we do a little 3-minute breathing exercise?
Let's do it. Yeah.
Of purging? Okay, so here's what we're going to do. The first thing is it's 3 minutes. I have a little 3-minute soundtrack. I write all my own music for all the breath work training. And here's what we're going to do. Very simple. The analogy, ultimately, I like to use the analogy like wringing out a dish rag. We have to squeeze it and wring it out and get everything out. And so the very basics of breath work here is breathe in through your nose. And then when you're purging, breathe out through your mouth. And there's a whole longer explanation, but just for right now, just in through your nose and breathe out through your mouth. When you breathe in through your nose, take your tongue and stick it straight up in the roof of your mouth. And then when you breathe out, drop your tongue like that. Okay, so that's the first part of it. Second part is I'll lead you with the bells. We're just going to listen to the bells and breathe in and out with the bells. So the best you can, this is a little tricky, but put your awareness in your lower abdomen and just think like a balloon. That's it. A balloon fills up, then a balloon drops. A balloon fills up and a balloon drops. And here's what's going to happen in the next 3 minutes. You're going to do this for like a minute or so, or 2 seconds, 10 seconds, whatever the word is. Your mind's going to be right in your center, and then it's going to leave. You're going to have another thought. You're going to think about something. And the mastery is right when you catch yourself, bring it back. See, the monkey escaped from the tree because it's a master locksmith. So chain the monkey to the tree, your mind goes out, and then you just bring it back. And in the next 3 minutes, if you have to bring it back 100 times, that's wonderful. Why? Because you built the muscle of bringing it back. When people say, oh, I want to be more centered, well, the only way you can be centered is to be thrown off center. Because if you're never thrown off center, the center doesn't exist.
Yep.
So so you've been thrown off center, you come back to the center. Being thrown off makes the center actually exist. And so here's what we're going to do. Okay, Okay, the bell's going to start here in a moment. Is the volume okay? Can you hear that, Nicole?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, great. So the clock's already started. It's just 3 minutes here. So challenge yourself, 3 minutes, follow along. And this is better if your eyes are closed, unless you're driving, of course. So let your shoulders drop and wiggle your toes and put your mind into your lower abdomen. So here we go. Breathe in for 1 bell. Inhale. Exhale. In. Exhale. In. Release. Okay, now breathe in. A little longer in the exhale. Breathe out. In. Release. Okay, now we're going to go longer. Inhale. Exhale. Keep breathing out. In. Release. Keep breathing out. Okay, now hold the out breath. Don't breathe in yet. And here we go. Breathe in. Exhale. Keep breathing out. Hold just 8 seconds. Keep your mind in your lower abdomen. Inhale. Exhale. 8 seconds. Okay, now hold. Don't breathe in. Last breath. Here we go. Big breath in. Exhale. Okay. And open your eyes. So you just invested 3 minutes into the most precious thing you can invest in, and that's you. And you took mind and you put it right in your center, and sure, it escaped many times. We know that, and that's okay. But 3 minutes of that, just purging and breathing out for longer than you breathe in, is a form of medicine. It's a very, very old form of medicine. Certainly predates our modern Western medicine, our modern healthcare system. I don't know if it's healthcare, maybe sick care.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Or maybe sick monetization, where you make a lot of money on sick people. That's maybe what our system is right now. But that's a little exercise you can do. If you can do it for 1 minute, do one breath, breathe in and then breathe out for 12 seconds and then hold the out breath for 10 seconds. And then maybe that's enough. Maybe that's enough for the day. But mastering your breath is mastering your emotions. And emotional mastery, what it's not is saying, oh, I'm never going to be angry. I'm never going to feel grief. I'm never going to feel any of these things. Well, good luck with that. And sometimes, you know this better than I do. What's the word we call from that? Oppression? Delusion?
Depression, right? Avoidance.
Right.
Denial.
Yeah. So, but because I'm going to go Eastern here, the different energies, see, emotion is just energy. And that different energies hang out in different organs. So like anger hangs out in your liver, and shock hangs out in your heart, and worry hangs out in your stomach and spleen, and fear hangs out in your kidneys, and grief hangs out in your lungs. I mean, they figured this out thousands of years ago. So instead of saying, I am angry, you can say, hey, I have anger type energy running through me. And just that creates the little bit of space between you and the emotion, because when it's raining, you're not saying I am raining.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It's raining. Okay. And guess what? It'll pass. We know that. And same with anger. It'll pass. We know that. And that little breathing techniques can help purge all the emotions and all the stress, especially anger. There's some old things. I don't know if mom ever said earlier, mind your business, right? When mom told you that, mom was right. If mom said, next time you get angry, take 10 deep breaths. Mom was profoundly right if she told you that.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think what's interesting is, people just think of, oh, deep breathing. Well, but there's different types of breathing. And like this, what you're showing us here and just brought us through this purging kind of breathing of a deep inhale, but then slowing down and extending the exhale and then holding it. That's a particularly good type of breathing for releasing and cleansing and clearing this. And, I have found that to be very, very true. Just even for myself in, using these kinds of techniques, that you feel different after different ones and you can apply them in different situations. And so if you go back to the previous episode that we did and people listen to the 5-minute breathing exercise, that was more for the focus of regulation and just settling yourself. Whereas this is really good for people to just latch onto for, okay, those times when I do feel the intensity building, or I'm having trouble letting go of something, or I'm finding myself just stuck or in an intense space, physically, emotionally, whatever, to be able to use this to literally purge and move through that and to try to avoid the buildup. I think it's just such a simple but powerful technique.
The flyover is when you're purging, breathe out longer than you're breathing in, and then even hold emptiness. We used to talk about space or emptiness. And so you hold it, where if we want to get technical, we can call it intermittent hypoxia, where you're bringing your blood oxygen level down and then popping it back up and then bringing it down. That's wonderful, wonderful for clearing and purging and wringing out the dish rag and starting to clean the kitchen. Another little side benefit is very good for your immune system, but that's a different type of breathing than if you're going to fill up the bank account, the energy bank account. Maybe we do that another time. Like, okay, but first you purge, like before if you have a cup that's halfway filled with water and you say, oh, I want to fill the water up, but there's dirt in the water. Well, if you pour more water in there, you're just going to get more dirty water. Let's clean it out first. Maybe we got to empty it and clean. So we always want to purge before we fill.
Yeah. And this is such an effective tool for doing that. And it's something that we all have the time and the skill to do. You don't need training. You don't need a bunch of time. Just doing what you just took us through in the 3 minutes can accomplish that. And so I hope that all of you listening will really try that and work with that and see how that can support you in your lives with your kids and otherwise. Jason, I know we need to wrap up here, but I want to make sure that people know where they can find out more about you and find your music.
Zenpiano.com is, I have a lot of my information on there. And if you want information on some of the breath work and some of the breath courses and stuff, just shoot us out an email, because most of these courses are invite only. I don't have a big web presence on it, but you can find me on Spotify and all the major Apple Music and everywhere there. I do a new album the 4th Friday of every month. So just look for that.
Yeah. And you've got lots of different types of music too that resonate with different people and that can help people create space just even in their everyday lives by having it on in the background. I mean, I love to do that with your Zen piano, and there's something for everyone there. So definitely check out Jason's music. Jason, always a pleasure to have you here. Thank you for stopping by again. Thank you for taking us through that. I know that people will find it very, very helpful. So I appreciate you. Thank you.
Well, hey, thank you so much for having me, Nicole.
And thanks as always to all of you for being here and for listening. We'll catch you back here next time.